pay grade. Those numbers made it way the heck out of my pay grade. He then demanded I put in overwork. It would have taken the rest of my shift for my own work. I just quit. Frick it. Heard he signed it and it all went to waste. He was fired. Sweet moldy justice. Got offered a kitchen job by a friend of mine who was going to be head chef at a new place that was open. Started there and it was a pretty cool job. Until about a month later when the owner yelled at my head chef friend in front of a dining room full of guests. So my friend put in his notice right on the spot and finished his 2 weeks where he was replaced by a new chef. New chef was nothing short of a Nazi, always berating employees. Nothing was ever good enough, and he especially had a hard on with me and was constantly giving me crap over anything he could think of. I found out that my chef friend got a spot in a big themed restaurant. Guitars on the wall hymns. That opened recently, so I requested half a day off for a doctor's appointment. Went there and got hired on the spot, then called the restaurant and told the hostess to tell dickhead chef that I wasn't coming in for the rest of the shift, and every shift after that since I was quitting. But here's where it gets good. I went back over a week later to get my last paycheck, and dickhead chef basically cornered me, told me what I did was unprofessional, and since he heard about where I was now he was going to call my supervisor and tell him how unprofessional I am. Then he asked me the name of my supervisor, to which this brought a crap-eating grin to my face as I enthusiastically told him the name of my supervisor, who just so happened to be my chef friend who just quit and who this Nazi butthole just replaced. I swear it was like watching a big balloon that rapidly deflated. He just had dumbfounded look on his face as he muttered out, "Oh, well, tell him I said hi." The best part was that his assistant chef was nearby, who really wasn't fond of him either, and he was trying to keep from busting out laughing. He walked out of there feeling like a boss. Bonus. About a month after I left, Butthole Chef made the mistake of pee off a dishwasher because he forgot to clock for his shift, and even though Butthole Chef knew dang well he was there the whole time, he refused to make the adjustment and told him tough crap. You learned a lesson. Meaning he just worked his full shift for nothing. Now this dishwasher was a big black dude who was built like a Steelers linebacker. So he grabbed Butthole Chef in a bear hug and started slamming him against the wall as hard as he could. My ex-girlfriend was working the host stand and told me she kept hearing this dull thumping sound coming from the back of the restaurant. Then one of the kitchen workers came running up. Butthole Chef screamed to him to go get help, and he was laughing so hard that he couldn't tell them what was happening right away and had to catch his breath first. The place then folded about less than a month later. Famous footwear. During the interview, manager shut up about how she wanted the other person but would hire me just to give me a chance. Worked there for 5 shifts. On day 2 she went and asked my previous managers about my private life. The one that really peeved me was she specifically asked my last employer who was employing my roommate while my roommate was on shift if I was sleeping with my roommate. On day 3 she got mad at me for doing something wrong after refusing to train me. I asked numerous times about pricing shoes. She would just do one silently without showing me where to look on the scanner or what exactly she was scanning or anything, and they handed back as if she had retrained me. On day 4 she berated me saying if we quit it wouldn't really frick her vacation up, which was the only reason she hired me over the other person. But now she won't have time to train a new person to cover her vacation, which was still 2 months out. My roommate put a notice at her job on this day. On day 5 manager hears the roommate got a better job. She confronts me saying I better not quit and then asks if I plan on quitting in 2 weeks. I tell her I've been considering because she refused to train me and she was asking inappropriate questions to my previous employers. She went off on me, yelling at me on the sales floor telling me not to ever come. She then put that she had terminated me in my paperwork due to insubordination and theft, as well as sending my one and only paycheck to the wrong address 5 times before I finally got HR to just cancel the old checks and mail it directly to me. My last day was on a Saturday. All except one of her staff quit by the following Tuesday. 3 days later, I accidentally brought one of the box knives home. I called asking if she wanted it back and she threatened to call the cops if I ever showed up again. During the trying to get my check, I mentioned the questioning of my previous employers. They said they would deal with it. I moved out of town and never went back anyway, so not sure if she still works there. I did get my check. serious. People would do what's your if I... However, she lied about how much I would be making, so I was about $30 a short because I was making $13 hourly instead of $14.50. Was so fed up with everything, I said frick that and just called it the amount I would willingly pay to have her out of my life forever. She was quite the scene. I was working at a small bar hotel in some remote place. The manager was an absolute jackass. Just rude to staff and the customers and up. There was only a small handful of staff to work all day every day, myself included. We were casuals. I worked 9 long days in a row, finishing really late and getting up really early in the morning to come back and clean the hotel, with not many hours in between. Pretty sure illegal in August. It also wasn't that close to my house, about a 40 minutes drive each way. I had a day off after my long stint doing lots of shifts, which I was excited about and planned a nice day out with my BF, but the manager rings me the day before to ask me to cover someone's shift who wanted it off. I said no, I had plans. He lost his crap and told me when I started I agreed to work weekends and I need to be available. Well, yeah, I worked every weekend since I started and I would have been available, but I wasn't rostered on originally. But decided I had enough of being treated like crap and the money wasn't worth it to dread coming to work. I don't like confrontation and felt bad my friend got me the job, so I wrote a letter quitting and planned to leave it on manager's desk and GTFO were there. Plan half failed cause I got asked to stay back at work and panicked cause manager was out, so it was perfect to leave the letter on his desk that if I stayed back he'd be back and I wouldn't have a chance. Stayed back for a bit then decided stuff it I'm leaving, so said I forgot I had an appointment. Dropped the letter and ran. I was casual so didn't have to give notice. Manager has a big party booked in for the next day and I was his only staff who could work it. Not anymore. He rang me non-stop for 2 days and I ignored it. Best decision ever. That was pretty mild up until he had people coming in the next day, so when that crap kept spamming from my phone for 2 days. Nice. I worked as a porter at a pretty busy bakery once. The owner must have been at least £500 and being that this was a family business. His wife ran the front of the shop. It wasn't long before she started making passes at me and grabbing me in extremely inappropriate ways. I was 18 at the time and she must have been in her 50s. Either way, this was very unwelcome attention and eventually I got fed up and quit. I specifically chose the holiday Valentine's Day because I knew that they would be small. I was tasked with cleaning everything up at the end of the day and prepping everything for the next day. Needless to say, I left everything away. Did not prep a single thing and dumped a bunch of flour on the floor and spelled out I quit in the flour. I had a lot of angry voicemails the next day, but I never regretted doing what I did. That's messed up that she could get away with it. Worked at a KFC. A kid had shat into his hands and flung it at the ceiling, where it promptly fell down and splattered on the floor. From what I had gathered, sometimes you have to do crappy, no pun intended, things in your job. I wish we had the staff to do the crappy things. We are supposed to have 4 people out front. 3 serving packets, 1 of them.
Yokai can handle this.
Hostiles located.
All I wanted was to get up, not on the ground, crack open a beer and bring down what ended up being in the open. So yeah, there were 20 people waiting in my including people who had paid for sleeping, crap on the ceiling and floor in the men's toilet.
Bruh. Shut the fuck up.
Charlie.
Bruh. Shut the fuck up.
But there's only so much you can do, especially when it feels like you've got 20 odd people mad at you and no one to back you up. All the buttholes can only feel better about themselves by berating as well employees got what they deserved though. I quit a few hours after my shift was over, but the next day was one of our most physically intense work days. For 6 months my supervisors kept promising a raise promotion that never came. No matter how many more responsibilities I got or how well I worked, all I got were
One on four
promises.
remaining.
It also didn't help that my mental physical health was starting to suffer. I sucked it up for a long time hoping that things would eventually get better, but they didn't. When I had enough, I sent in a text message to the group chat that all of the workers were a part of and said something like, "Don't expect me at work tomorrow or in the future. I quit." Once I sent that message, a few co-workers tried reaching out to me and one of my supervisors tried to get in touch. I assumed they were trying to get me to change my mind, but I was set on what I did, so I never spoke to any of my former supervisors, and it was a bit of a while before I fully opened up to my former co-workers. Besides having to deal with a physically intense shift the next day, I left them with a lot to handle. Even though
5 seconds to go. One friendly operator remains. Prevent further access to the biohazard container. Op 4 eliminated. Successful.
Since I was on good terms with one of my former co-workers, every now and then she let me know how things were. They ended up hiring 2 new guys to try and fill the hole I left. But as far as I know, they were never able to match what I was able to do. Prior to them being hired, my supervisors tried to spread out all of the work that I left behind. That resulted in the employees that worked there being overworked and it all turned into a crap show. 3 months after I left, my former supervisor...
Oh, okay, Matt, I'm gonna fucking kill you, you son of a bitch. 2 checks didn't fucking pass. 2, you're a lying sack of shit. Give me my fucking money. Oh, buddy, I'm gonna fuck his day up when I get back.
Secure the room. We need to protect the biohazard container.
After I quit, a few other workers either left on good terms or had their contracts come to an end and chose not to come back. I like to believe that me quitting was the final straw that eventually led to all of the change that happened at this job. I had something similar happen to me. Promised a raise for months and months. I finally had enough and found a new job. Old job kept calling me a new job to come back. No. I worked at a sub shop for 2 years. The last 2 weeks we were so short that I was working a 70-hour work week and I wasn't even being worked the hardest. I was loyal to the company but the management wasn't fantastic and I was severely underpaid. I had a friend who knew about my work situation and without telling me referred me to his much better job. The job called one day while I was working a double at my sub shop. After I got off work I went by the place and was hired. I immediately called the owner of my store and quit. They were so short-handed that there wasn't enough people for a shift. They had 5 total employees. But now I have way better insurance, and great management. I'm happy with jumping off the boat. Sometimes owners of restaurants or mom-and-pop restaurants are so cheap. They don't want to spend more money hiring staff. It sucks. Little land. After being lightened, screwed out of a healthy redundancy package that I was entitled to and had a bevy of false accusations placed against me so they could fire me. None of them stuck because they were made up. I quit in my own special way. I first waited until my store manager, area manager and state manager all were on annual leave and I'd be running the shop. I then got a doctor's note giving me 3 weeks off work for a straight back muscle. That afternoon, on Friday, the busiest trading day of the week, half an hour after taking over I wrote my resignation email. One went to the CEO, upper management and board members detailing how I'd been screwed over by my managers for the previous 18 months, threatening legal action and going to the press if my leave payouts were withheld. The second was to my area manager's email, who was uncontactable on leave, stating my 2 weeks notice to resign and attaching a copy of my doctor's certificate that said I was unable to work. Then, I shut and locked the doors, threw the keys in the safe and went home. I turned my phone off, drank 2 bottles of wine and played the frick out of some Final Fantasy. On the following Monday, I checked my bank accounts to find all my annual leave paid out and my 2 weeks of notice paid out as sick leave. Still, frick you Lickwarland. I refused to buy at any Westerners owned store thanks to the way I was treated. This was well thought out and gangster and kudos. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. My format. Was there anybody in your class at school who you hated and got revenge on? Copied it from a post of mine a couple years ago. And my high school kids loved to embarrass kids taking shoots, so they would kick open the store door and laugh at them. My junior year, some kids a year below me did it to some nerdy kid thinking he would not do anything back. Until he came into the lunchroom with his crap on a paper towel and slapped the kid who kicked the door open in the face with it. And that was pretty much the end of that joke. This is easily the best thing in this thread. Was on a school music tour and this kid who bullied me in class decided to throw stuff at me on the coach. I kept all the stuff and waited for him to get off the bus and threw it back at him. Bearing in mind I had avoided confrontation for 2 years, I finally cracked. He punched me in the arm. I punched him in the chest hard as I could and I saw tears well up in his eyes as he staggered off. But that's not the end. None of the teachers saw this fight, so it continued. Myself and 3 friends were in our room before dinner and this kid and his mates decide to raid our room. They nick a few packets of candy, etc. and run out. Myself and friends barricaded the door and then went out via the balcony and got a teacher. The bully and his mates were caught trying to bash our door down. Their rooms got searched for our stuff and the teachers found booze. They were 15. So illegal, various drugs and a blown up toilet, as in destroyed. Their room was wrecked and it was about £5,000, $7,500 of damage. The bully and his friends were suspended and had to pay for the damage and banned from future school trips. But there's still more. We were in Malta, so they couldn't really be sent home. On the last day we went to the beach. Myself, my roommates, and a few older students hired out some paddle boats and went out on the ocean. And the bully and his mates decided to follow us. We were just chilling in the sun when the bully's boat comes over. They stop a few meters away and swim onto ours. Full-blown fight kicks off. My teacher had hired a jet ski kind of thing and comes racing over. Just as I'm pushing the bully off the boat, the teacher stops and sends waves flying. The bully slips and hits his jaw on the boat. Wasn't broken though. Him and his mates swim off and leave us alone. Get back to school the next day and they're in deep crap. Banned from 6th form, 11th and 12th grade, and in isolation for 2 weeks after their suspension and paying the damages. It was glorious. That's awesome. During 5th grade, a kid harassed me mainly about my weight. I usually ignored him. While we were walking up a hill to our art class, he noticed I was on my crappy phone. He took it from me and found a picture of my sister. He started saying how much he'd love to frick her. I shoved him down and grabbed my phone, then continued walking up the hill without a word. A lot of the time when he physically attacked me, I would silently push him away and the teacher would get in the lead. Well, this time there wasn't a teacher. Pushing him down max speed the skid off. He ran at me and I turned around, stuck my foot in the air, and pushed him backwards. By now my friends had stopped walking and were laughing their asses off while I calmly stared at this kid who had caused silent tears to be shed for a year.
Alright, good. I was about to be really fucking mad.
I couldn't run faster than him. I knew that. So I have to seriously fight this guy now. Something about realizing this and thinking of how much of a douche he was and how he had really hurt my feelings.
I'm still really fucking mad though, because 2 checks have not cleared.
I just went to town, pulverizing
2.
his face. I didn't realize that I was bleeding.
Just send it to my fucking bank account, man.
But only like the very tip. It felt nothing of pain, and even though it was small, my friends started flipping out. They ran up the hill and got a teacher one by boy rolled around in pain and I stood clutching my stab wound that was really just a cut. After we were both in the principal's office, the principal saw I was stabbed and figured I was acting out of self-defense. Logan got a few months in juvie while the girls were big tough me. It was great. High freaking 5 man. You took on a guy with a knife. That takes some balls. When I was a freshman, there was a sophomore who would bully me in our pay class. Till the end of the year, the class was in the locker room changing. While I had my shirt over my face, this guy slapped my face. I finally lost it. I immediately chased after him and shoved him. This caused him to lose his balance and fall face first into a row of lockers, the kind with padlocks exposed. I felt vindicated for finally standing up for myself. But the best part was hearing all the other kids in the class ridicule him for being punked by a freshman. Nothing great. 6th grade I wasn't the most beautiful girl, so I was picked on because I was overweight. All the time the popular girls would pick on me. So one day I noticed the most popular girl in class had a tissue sticking out of her bra. She started picking on me and I instantly came back with "I'm going to go cry about it. Can I borrow a tissue from your bra?" in front of our whole class during indoor recess. Instant tears. Never seen that girl cry before. It was the best moment of my 6th grade year. Stupid comeback, but it was a hitter. Never felt like such. The best part of this story is how the last sentence just dissolves into nonsense. It makes it extra funny somehow.
What are you doing, Pronto?
Switch it lane, better watch it, I'ma take your name. Don't drop it, motherfucker, I'ma bring the play. No, this ain't a challenge, keep it fluid, don't misunderstand. Coming up quick, get a blast in the Hall of Fame. Every shame, get a play with the enemy. Got this thing, get a play with the Tennessee. Hey, so I gotta do speed, can I toss some of these now? Time that I know on the road, I'ma go, go to the block, you're on the road. Girls and goes, yes I know, giving you a taste of your own medicine. And 70, you negligence, haven't been no cinnamon. Every more intelligence is scary as I wanna switch it lane. Better watch it, I'ma take your name. Don't drop it, motherfucker, I'ma bring the play. This ain't a challenge, keep it fluid, don't misunderstand. Coming up quick, get a blast in the Hall of Fame. I just made everything you wanted. You can keep the change, and I'm gonna chase on the page. You can keep this shit, I'ma take the frame. I just gotta balance, new balance when I'm wearing shoes. I just got a girl and she do what I wanted to. I just got a whip and it flies like my revenue. I just made a hit and it bangs like a drummer do. And she dancing, throw it back, yeah, throw it back. I'm advancing, get the cash, yeah, get the bag, call it ransom. I'ma take her with the friends, we gon' do it tandem. I'ma buy that bitch a Benz, okay, money, money stronger. I just got a couple bottles out of get some models, double throttle, Aristotle. I can settle in the night like it's very fatal. Don't let me catch you in the streets as I switch it lane, better watch it, I'ma take your name. Don't drop me, motherfucker, I'ma bring the play. This ain't a challenge, keep it fluid, don't misunderstand. Quick, get a blast in the Hall of Fame.
Locate the biohazard container.
I do that.
What the fuck you talking about? You some bust that ass, bitch, you better shut your mouth. You think that talking on the now will help you live with something? I'll tell the motherfucker bitch you come up on your money. You think you acting so funny with your fucking gun up? Your life will last and your past take it from the fucking shop. What the fuck is stupid thoughts you had at last?
Container and secure
You
it.
motherfucking pussy boy, just close your eyes and let you pass. I'm a killer bastard motherfucker. Always place to hear you wish to stay under the covers, please. Evil motherfucking pussy lover. In your soldiers with no told, just ask me why it is so cold. Act on me, pull up like the killing spree. All these motherfuckers tryna act the fool on me. Bleed true to your mind with fucking bullet top. Make this leather with no rap, as I kill you with no crap. What the fuck you talking about?
Void shield on the window.
What the fuck you talking about? What the fuck you talking about? What the fuck you talking about?
Making an entrance.
Secure the container. Hostile activity. Container 1.
1, 2, 3, on my block, supposed to be super soldier ring with the fucking glass. Take the chick, you better break the god, bitch, you motherfuckers, that's the ski. Do not try to test me, or we'll find your body on the floor. Oh my god, now watch the shot through your brain, so insane. face. I thought they were out of shoot, killing all these people. Cloud their head, this shit with red. No more proof when you are said. Don't forget my face when I ain't creeping in this fucking place. I ain't able once again. Take the fucking hell my man. Ever thought you want to die? You let bitches close their eyes. Pussy water, want the shit. Shut the fuck up, pussy bitch. Stop the cries, stupid shit. Let your leases to my day. I don't care, just shoot you off. Or I take your fucking boss. That's the hell what people say. Do not try to get the head. Fuck the world and fuck the life. It's the waste of use and not. Lucky if you die tonight. Say your prayers, not alright. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, supposed to be super sorcery. What the fuck you got to do? You better break the God, bitch. You motherfuckers acting me. Do not try to test me. Go and find your body on the floor. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, supposed to be super sorcery. What the fuck you got to do? You better break the God, bitch. You motherfuckers acting me. Do not try to test me. Go and find your body on the floor.
Op 4 eliminated. Friendly mission successful. You need to locate the biohazard container.
Watch your body decay as I hit the fucking replay. Instigated all the murders as I grip onto my burner. It's all the cause of my thoughts. I keep it raw with the murder. I'm a murder, probably creeping. I'm a lurker.
Good work. The biohazard container has been located.
Victim of this homicide, I put that down up to your head. It's because of my thoughts that you're dead. Victim of this homicide, I put that down to your head.
Insertion in 5 seconds. Proceed to the biohazard container and secure it.
Get away, your soul, I take the hell, I sacrifice you to these demons that be steady feeling for a homicide. I need to get up out this evil shit, but I can't seem to get up where I go and grab my motherfucking scope my man and take his private blood down. I grab the lock, you fuck with us, and take your life, I slap you 6 out with that dot. Hit up red, now you die. Look me in my bucket eyes, you see the devil is inside my brain, is full of people thoughts. Cock my Smith and Wesson, then you drop. Bitch, I rip the shop, I know you fucking stressing when we pressing with that dirty clock. With my partner busted shots, hit the block, then drop it off. This the tales of a real life killer, I'll be in your thoughts.
Hostile activity. Neutralize the threat.
Daddy,
fucking hoe. This is no fucking show. Now you get your wanted hoe.
Good job. Container secure.
Darkness that's got you down. Nobody ever feels really safe in the dark. No one who's ever a child, that is. Oh, but he's all right.
I wear a mask from the darkest black as the fucking night. See me creeping from my sight. Demons set up to take bite. Got my blade, not for safety. Motherfuckers acting shaky. Let you know, saying calls. Everyone is after all. See my face, looking sick. Why you acting like a bitch? I see fear in your eyes. Lead you right to your demise. You can choose how to die, but you cannot try to hide. I was smart from him. I can fucking multiply.
Still ready. Changing line.
10 seconds remaining. 5 seconds to insertion. Biohazard container location unknown.
Extension sauce and catch a rat. You can smell the bloody stench. Twisted with the branch. Who the fuck with a pro? Chop a leg, make them crawl. Y'all have the soul. Fires, throats, kill them all. Like the blood that I dripped off the highest cliff. Take a piss on your crib. You were no big.
Heads up. Raise up your mouth. Laser set.
Op 4 has found the biohazard container.
Don't go near this door where there's a claymore on it.
Don't go near this door where there's a claymore on it.
Down to 15 seconds. 10 seconds left. 10 seconds left.
Bro, shoot the bitch.
Biohazard container securing pods. Take out the hostage. protect the biohazard container.
Got one!
Friendly victorious. Hostiles eliminated.
Smart YouTube.
Locate the biohazard container. Nicely done. The biohazard container has been located. Insertion in 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Proceed to the biohazard container and secure it.
Hola.
Loading the mail. I'm out! Gotta reload! Jonah.
Down to one friendly. One op 4 remaining. Seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. And once the threat is neutralized.
That's some bullshit.
Eliminated all friendlies.
Is this heaven? No, this is heaven. I'm just kidding. Don't baby, Twitch, please no. I didn't even do that.
To locate the biohazard container. Well done. Biohazard container located. 10 seconds. 5 seconds before insertion. Proceed to the biohazard container and secure it.
About to reload. Void shield on the window.
Secure the biohazard container. Op 4 last operator standing. Op 4 neutralized. Mission successful.
So how do you start an ATM business? Now, I personally always wondered this because every single time I use an ATM outside, I'm like, wow, if this was my ATM, I could be making money just by having people like come use my ATM just for the simple fact of convenience because they don't have any cash on them. So like all of these videos that I make on how to start a specific type of business, I'm going to tell you guys exactly what to expect when you start this business. It's like the startup costs, the expenses, the profit, the challenges, and every single thing that you can do to actually get this business started in the best way possible, honestly. And not just like me telling you like, oh, you do this, you do that, but actually giving you guys the suppliers, the cost of everything. Because like my last video, I think that was yesterday, where I told you guys like, hey, this is how you start a gumball machine, and I told you guys exactly where to get it, exactly the price. I want to make sure with all of these videos on starting a business that you guys have all the information you possibly need, because a lot of YouTubers out there are just telling you like, hey, just start this and start that and start this here, and you're like sitting down and you're like, okay, so how do I do that exactly? How do I get started? So rather than having to figure all that out, I want to make sure that I give you guys all the information right now. So for the first part is how much money does it actually take to actually start this business? We like to call that in business the startup cost. That means like how much money does it cost to start the ATM business? How much money does it cost to actually buy the ATM? How much money does it cost for every single thing out there? So rather than tell you guys an estimate, I'm asking you to call Cardtronics. And if you don't know who Cardtronics is one of the #1 distributors of ATMs out there. And this is the cool thing about Cardtronics, right? Cardtronics provides you an ATM. Remember, it's always new. You always want to buy a new ATM, because if you buy one from Craigslist, next thing you know, that person's stealing people's credit card information by having some fraudulent stuff installed in that ATM. Next thing you know, it breaks down or anything like that. It's going to cost you more money than it actually makes you. So you don't want that. You want to make sure you got something new. So go to Cardtronics, and they hook you up, right, with the ATM, and they also hook you up with a back office. If you don't know what a back office is, that's basically, for example, right, you'll probably ask yourself, Tommy, if I have an ATM, how would I know when I have to go in and reload it? How would I know how much transactions are happening? How would I know that the location is actually working? The way you actually do it, when you buy an ATM from Cardtronics, they send you like text. They send you an entire list, and you can actually go online and check this out, and it tells you like, hey, you had this many transactions this month, this many transactions this week, hey, your ATM is running low on money, you have to go and refill it, and it tells you all this stuff. So it's not like a guessing game anymore, but it's kind of like you have control over everything. It's very specific, right? So I'm going to actually go ahead and call Cardtronics. This is a phone number. It's also in the link down below, so don't worry if you don't know the phone number. You don't have to pause the video. It's down there below. We're going to call them, Hopefully they're still like available, and if they're not, I know the price for the ATM, so I might as well just tell you. But let's try to call them so we can get the information straight from the horse's mouth.
Thank you for calling Cartronics. This is Amber. How can I help you?
Hey, is your name Amber?
Yes.
Oh, awesome, Amber. My name is Tommy. I'm just calling in today about some information about the ATMs and stuff like that.
Okay. Are you a technician or?
No, I'm an independent business, so I want to start the ATM business. I want to start like putting ATMs around my neighborhood and stuff like that.
Okay. So what I will have to do, our sales team is actually out for the day, so I can go ahead and send them over an email with your information, and they can get in contact with you tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's awesome, Amber. But do you have like some estimates for the prices and stuff like that? Like some like estimate. It doesn't have to be like specific. Like for the average ATM and stuff like that.
Honestly, I have no
Secure the
idea.
room.
So even though that call wasn't successful, I want you guys to understand something, right? Whenever you're calling anyone, this is a tip, by the way. Make sure you always use their first name. Make sure you're always nice and cordial, and make sure you're always trying to find solutions for everything, right? But here's my thing, right? We didn't get the exact price for the ATM, but I personally know how much the ATM actually costs because I know the model of everything, and I made sure I did my research, right? The ATM costs around $2,200, and it rolls around $16,000 to $24,000 at any time. So if you have that amount of money, that's cool, right? But don't get scared, guys, because that's not how much money you actually need to actually get started. So let me explain, right? So first of all, let's get our calculators out because you guys know I like to do the math for everything, right? So say the average, and let's go high, right? Let's always go high because maybe the expense is high, so if you prepare for something high and it's lower, then you're good. But if you prepare for something that's lower and then it ends up being more, then you're probably screwed, right? So let's say the average ATM price is around $2,200. By the way, the ATM model and everything is going to be down there, so don't worry about it, right? You need $2,200 to actually buy the ATM, but you don't need to buy an ATM. This is my main thing, right? You don't need to buy an ATM until you assure a customer. What does this mean, Tommy? What does it mean that we don't need to buy an ATM until we assure a customer? What this means is, whenever you plan on getting into this business, if you do, well, what you have to do is you go, for example, I saw this salon in my neighborhood, and this salon is always busy, right? So I can imagine that maybe sometimes people come with a card and they need a swipe, and they don't take credit cards, you know? It's a cash business, so maybe they might need an ATM in that business, right? So I might go in there and I might tell the business owner, I might say, hey, are you interested in having a free ATM installed here? You don't have to worry about maintenance or anything. We handle everything. And on top of that, for the convenience of having an ATM, you also get paid for having this ATM here installed for free. And she's gonna be like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Wow, right? It's gonna work, right? So when she tells me, okay, and we sign a contract going month to month, and also giving me the right at any time to actually remove my ATM if it's not working, then we can assure and order the ATM on the phone. So you don't have to buy an ATM and then start looking like crazy. You can just wait until you have a guaranteed customer that signed a contract, that you can order the ATM and actually have it installed into that business, right? So that's around our calculator again, right? So say you did your research, you have a customer, blah, blah, and that costs around $2,200, right? You only really need, this is my main thing, right? You only really need around $2,000 to start, right? Maybe $2,000, even $1,000. Because remember, right? The money isn't really ever being spent. It's just being recycled. You put the money in, somebody takes it out, it goes straight to your bank account in around 24 hours, and that's about it, right? And then you just put it right back in. So it doesn't matter. Don't worry. And by the way, be very careful when you're reloading ATMs because it's very, you have to be careful with everything. So always be on guard and always be aware. So you only need around $2,200 for the ATM, and you need around another $2,000 for the actual money that you're actually going to load into it. You do need a couple other things, and I'm going to include this, so that's like around, maybe let's say like $500 extra, and this is like to actually form an LLC, actually get a lawyer, actually create contracts, and all these things are important, guys, because, and by the way, when I say a contract, I mean creating a contract that actually when you go to the business owner, you say, hey, you're gonna be locked in for every month to month. And the reason I say month to month and not yearly is because no one wants to be locked into a contract for so long. It's not feasible these days, right? Yeah, and that's basically it. That's all it really takes to start your own ATM business. So you get your contract, you get the ATM, you get your customer, and by the way, also
I'm
get
still
a business
making
account.
bank.
It's very important to have a business account so you
Annual
can keep your money separate from what the business is making. And when you register your company as an LLC, make sure you register it in maybe Florida or Wyoming or any of those states. Why? Why, Tommy, would I register those businesses in that state? Well, because you get a lower tax, because those states don't really charge that much tax. So, and by the way, you don't have to be operating the business in that state to actually register it in that state. So don't worry about that either. I got you covered. So now that you know that the startup cost is around $4,700 to actually start your own ATM business, you're probably asking me, Tommy, well, what are the monthly expenses on this business, right? Because it has to have some type of expense, right? Well, remember when I told you that when you're actually negotiating with that business owner to actually get the ATM installed for free, you're actually going to have to give them a cut of the profits. So that's kind of an expense too, and that's a commission. So don't worry, it's a commission, so you get to deduct that from your taxes as your profits, so you don't get taxed on the whole thing. You get taxed on the profit that you actually made after you deduct that, right? So don't worry, got you covered. Now, say for example, most people out there, they go from 25% to 35%, all the way to 65%. What does this mean? That sometimes, depending on the foot traffic that business is getting, by the way, foot traffic means the amount of people that are coming into the business. If there's a lot of people, between 4 to 8% of the people that come in are probably going to use the ATM. So it's very good, right? So say for example, the average business has around 150 people coming in. Let's do 0.04. So let's say 6 people use that ATM, and you're charging like $3. That's $18 that day times 30. Well, the ATM made $540, and that's on the low end. It could be like twice or double or triple that, depending on where you put it in, right? But back to the expenses, right? So you have to pay this business owner around maybe 25 to 35, maybe even 45%. And if you put it in a specific location, for example, right, one of the highest earning locations for ATMs is probably a gentleman's club. And that's like a strip club, if you don't know what a strip club is, right? And the reason is because everyone in that place needs cash to actually operate. So they don't really care if you have to pay like $7 or even $8 to use an ATM, because it's like a premium thing. You know, everyone wants to go in there and just be baller, get the money, and then be out. You know what I'm saying? So you can load up your ATM there and charge like $7 to $8. And since it's such a high foot traffic location, and other people actually want to take part into the business, you can offer like, hey, I'll give you 60% of the money, maybe 50% of the money, and I'll take the other 50%, right? And that's how you do it. You actually create your own commission. Just don't be greedy, because other people can actually notice that you're being greedy. And remember, you're negotiating with business owners, so they're not stupid. You know, they have their own business. Now, the second expense is the internet for the actual ATM. You didn't know that, huh? And basically, if you don't know this, right, every ATM uses internet to actually load everything up. Because remember, every time somebody swipes, and they use the internet to actually check if that person has the money into their account or they're not, and they get rejected or they get declined. And when that happens, you get sent a text. All that stuff happens with internet. If you want, you can use Cardtronics to actually do everything, like install the internet and everything like that. And they only charge you around 0.20, I think, what is it, like 0.20 cents per each transaction. So that's not that bad. But also, if you want, you can just get your own modern and your own internet installed on the ATM. So for example, if you go to T-Mobile or AT&T, that's going to charge you like $20, and then you can put that modem there, you can connect it to the ATM, and then that's it. Works for everybody. So the expenses of the ATM is just really like the $20 monthly for the internet, and then the 35% that you have to pay, maybe even 25, maybe 35, depending on when you put it in, to that business owner, so you can actually operate the business. And that's around it. There's not that many charges. Now, let's talk about everybody's favorite thing, which is the profits. Tommy, how much money am I going to make off of this ATM? Well, if you were listening, I told you that the average business, like maybe between 4 to 8% of every person that comes in, right,